NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski came out with a Toronto Raptors update ahead of this year's trade deadline, so we'll discuss that as well as OG Anunoby getting injured in the Golden State Warriors Toronto Raptors game last night, so we'll give an update on his situation as well as how the Raptors performed against Golden State, and Fred VanVleet. He's signing with Clutch Sports according to a report, so we'll discuss what that means for his future free agency. And the Toronto Raptors have also made a couple of moves ahead of this year's deadline. So we'll break all of that down and more in this video. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is Woj report on the Toronto Raptors trade deadline. Now, there's been a lot of chatter, lots of talks from NBA insiders about what the Toronto Raptors could do, what to predict ahead of this year's trade deadline, but nothing really hits as much as a Woj bomb. Nothing hits as hard as when Woj or Shams come out with their comments, with their takes, and Woj had a fair bit to say about the Toronto Raptors ahead of this year's deadline, as he came out and said that OG Anunoby specifically is a player around the league that there's great interest in him at really probably the most important position in the league, that wing forward. 6'7" player, two-way player. I think there's a belief Toronto could get as many as 3 first-round picks in a deal for OG Anunoby if they decided to move him. They've clearly talked with teams to see what the market is on him, and I think everybody virtually on that Raptors team. So this is interesting coming from Woj, because obviously there's been enough reports out from enough of established reporters that the Toronto Raptors are pretty well talking to everybody. There's talks regarding every single player. We're hearing leaks coming from every single team about every single guy on our roster. So the Toronto Raptors are virtually trying to figure out what the market is on all of our guys. But Woj went on to say that this Western Conference road trip, and this is similar to what we heard from Brian Windhorst of also ESPN, also one of the bigger insiders in the NBA, that the Raptors still don't really have their mind made up in terms of whether or not they're going to be sellers or buyers ahead of this trade deadline. Now, we'll break down this game, Golden State tonight, which will have an impact on it, but this Western Conference road trip, the 7-game road trip that they're having right now, on the West Coast ahead of the deadline, could be a big indicator in terms of what the Toronto Raptors do ahead of this trade deadline. So, I don't know. We had a tough loss last night. We beat the Sacramento Kings, but if the team can come out and, if they're not going to be going undefeated, honestly, at the end of this road trip, I'd imagine the Toronto Raptors are going to be sellers. It just depends on how many guys we could potentially send off. The talks are there. Masai Ujiri pretty well is all the info now at this point. It's on him to make a big decision, at this February deadline and see what ends up going down. But, let me know what you guys think about this. Obviously, it's nice to hear Woj come out and validate the Raptors could get 3 first-round picks for OG. Hopefully, they're good first-round picks as well. We don't want any of these trash, garbage picks, a lot of these teams be offering. But let me know what your thoughts are on this Woj talk down below. And the Raptors do have another game tonight on this Western Conference road trip. So if you're interested in betting on the Toronto Raptors, in this game, definitely check out the CoolBet Sports app. You can get some prop bets. There's the spread for the Raptors versus the Blazers tonight. Pretty good odds if you think you're hoping the Raptors sort of turn things around. One odds that looks pretty solid in this one is total points. I mean, the Blazers and the Raptors this season haven't been playing that much defense. So, over on the points seems like a pretty interesting bet there. You can get prop bets on Siakam points, rebounds, assists, or total rebounds and Fred VanVleet assists. So definitely if you're interested in betting, if you're into all that sort of stuff, definitely check out the CoolBet app. They're regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada, and you can sign up using the link down below. But that's tonight's game. Let's take a look at last night's game, because we got some unfortunate news in this one, as OG Anunoby was hurt in last night's game against the Golden State Warriors, and it was an ugly fall. It was a scary looking fall watching back on it, the highlights. I know it's a Western Conference game. A lot of people, it's too late for them to catch the full one. But OG Anunoby had a scary looking sort of fall to the ground. And I was worried seeing at first glance it's the shoulder, but apparently it's a wrist sprain. X-rays came back as negative for OG Anunoby in terms of it doesn't seem to be any structural damage. But, sprains can be bad. So we'll see how long that takes him out. I don't imagine he'll be playing tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. Don't have an official update on that front as of recording, but we're wishing the best for OG to sort of bounce back and come back in this one. And the Toronto Raptors overall in this game against the Golden State Warriors, it was looking pretty solid there from the start, right? They had a hot start to this game. They had a lead for moments in this one up until the third quarter, end of the game. Raptors are playing well. I mean, Siakam definitely was one of his down games of the season. 21 points, 7 and 3 is a bad game for Siakam now, but the efficiency is where you're kind of cringing at the 8 points, 8 for 26 shooting from the field. OG barely played, but Scotty Barnes in this one, right? Definitely deserving of the Scotty Barnes award in this game. Let's get that going because he has been remarkable as of late. And past 2 weeks, past 3 weeks, he has really flipped a switch and taking that jump we were all hoping he was going to take at the start of the season, but he's averaging 20 plus points per game in his last, I think, since mid-January or so. Break down that stat in the next video, but shout out to Scotty Barnes because his performances have been ridiculous. 24 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, 9 of 15 from the field, and is showing why the Toronto Raptors should run the offense through him more, give him more touches, being aggressive and stuff. And Fred VanVleet, once again, he's as much of Fred VanVleet hate as there's been on the internet and stuff, he's been really good for the past 3 weeks especially. He's turning things around. Yes, the defense is still questionable. Yes, Steph Curry cooked him last night and stuff, but Fred VanVleet has been great. And, Gary Trent Jr. is also being solid as well, right? Fred had 28 points, 10 assists, relatively efficient shooting, hit his 5 threes. Gary Trent Jr. 17 points, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line. Doing Gary Trent Jr. things. Our starters were great. Boucher was solid off the bench, but I do want to drum up. I wanna drum up some propaganda to get everyone hyped, to get everyone going, because Precious Achiuwa, since he's returned, has been remarkable. He got extended run, especially with OG Anunoby going down. He was our fifth starter for the second half, but Precious Achiuwa has just been ridiculous since his return. He had a cold start to the season, got hurt, but since he's been back and worked his way back into game shape, his first couple games, he said he was exhausted, wasn't playing that well, but as of late, man, Precious Achiuwa is looking like exactly what the Toronto Raptors were hoping of him coming into this season. And last night was no different. A big game against Golden State, right? Precious, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 8 of 12 from the field. Didn't knock down any threes, but overall just played a really solid game of basketball. So, the Raptors, they kind of sold it at the end of this game, right? Steph Curry, all the Golden State Warriors, they played really well, but, encouraging game, to say the least, with the exception of the OG Anunoby injury. I know a lot of people are bringing up trade situations too. Can we trade OG if he gets hurt? I'm not even stressing about that. I just want OG healthy. That's all I want. On the Raptors, not on the Raptors. Trade value, not trade value. I want OG healthy. That's my take right there. But let me know what you guys' thoughts on that Warriors game. Apologize I couldn't get the post-game reactions out on these West Coast trips. They're too late for me. I'm maybe one day a stronger Ben could have done it, but I coach a game this morning as well, so wasn't able to get the vid out. But next thing we're taking a look at is Fred VanVleet signing with Clutch Sports. Now, Fred VanVleet is potentially a free agent, unrestricted free agent this summer. Had a cold start to the year. He turned down a big extension, or at least that's what the reporter said. He said that he wasn't formally offered it, but the Raptors and Fred VanVleet mutually agreed not to give him the max extension last year, as they thought Fred VanVleet's better suited to wait out this season, potentially get more money this off season. Now, given his performance this year, I mean, Fred, the numbers are a little bit down. They're steadily increasing. They're going back up. But 19 points per game, 6 assists. Still not bad by any means, but 35% from the three-point line could go up for a shooter of the caliber of Fred VanVleet. But he's been a lot better as of late. And it seems like we know that Fred VanVleet wants a bag this offseason, and he's doing everything he can to sort of get it. As report has come out that Fred VanVleet is expected to sign with Clutch Sports ahead of a possible free agency. Obviously, he could pick up his player option, but it's, interesting stuff. Clutch Sports, OG Anunoby signed to Clutch Sports. Obviously, they have those ties to the LA Lakers. The Lakers have expressed interest in Fred VanVleet, so, some people are speculating whether or not Fred's going to force his way to LA. No, Clutch Sports represents, it feels like, half the NBA, and half the NBA is not on the LA Lakers. So Fred VanVleet's just trying to use a big agency to leverage himself a bigger contract, which honestly, he should do it. I don't think this is going to have a big impact on whether or not he's traded at this point in the deadline. Could impact how much he's asking for in free agency. So maybe by proxy, it's affecting the trade deadline, because Masai Ujiri thinks he's going to have to overpay for Fred because he works with Clutch Sports, or his agent's now with Clutch Sports, or potentially that's what the report is saying. Then maybe there's more incentive to get off of Fred VanVleet ahead of this trade deadline, but I don't think it's anything to be dramatic about that Fred's going to request a trade because Anthony Davis signed with Clutch and requested a trade out of the Pelicans or something like that. But let me know what you guys think on that front. Like, people want to see some moves happen. Like Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, they did not look happy in last night's game against the Golden State Warriors. Like, it was at least in the clips that they showed there, and that picture's been going around Raptors Twitter, Reddit, and people are calling for the Raptors to make some moves. As Bill Simmons came out and said, "Can the Grizzlies just send Danny Green, Zaire Williams, and 3 unprotected firsts for OG Anunoby so we can kick off the trade season? Someone's got to jump in the pool." I don't know. People are looking for moves. Well, the Toronto Raptors actually made some. As we got a little final topic that we're discussing. This one is the Toronto Raptors are making minor moves, and one of them is to be expected. One of them we knew was sort of going to happen, but basically Christian Koloko has rejoined the Toronto Raptors in San Francisco as planned. He should be available for the Golden State Warriors tonight. This tweet was taken earlier, but he didn't get any minutes against Golden State, but he was averaging 16 points, 14 rebounds, 3 steals, and 5 blocks against for the Raptors 905 in the G League. Played pretty solid down there in his stint. Right, obviously we've seen guys like Boucher, a lot of players in the Toronto Raptors thrive in the G League for the squad, but nice to see Koloko especially show off his prowess on the defensive end down there, get some confidence. I'm surprised they brought him up and then just didn't play him. That doesn't really make sense. Let him get extra reps with the 905, but shout out to Koloko for playing well. He's back up with the main roster. And last topic we're making. The tweet didn't show up, but basically Joe Wieskamp, the 3-point shooter with a 40-plus inch vertical, he is currently not on the roster. His 10-day expired, and the only way for the Toronto Raptors to bring him back now at this point is to sign him for the rest of the season. Haven't heard any indication that that's been made, that signing's been done. So it seems like Joe Wieskamp is dropped. Koloko's back up from the G League. So Masai Ujiri is likely keeping that open roster spot ahead of this year's trade deadline. Wasn't blown away by what Wieskamp can do, even though the guy was knocking down threes in his limited minutes with the Toronto Raptors. But let me know what your guys' thoughts on those moves are. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on everything surrounding the Toronto Raptors. And definitely hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us. Appreciate everyone that got us to the 27K mark. See if we can get 28K pretty soon. I don't know a timeline on it, but appreciate everyone that's checking out the vids. You guys are the best. I'm signing out.